Hey, I thought I'd come on today to talk about a topic that's been on my heart for a while. I think as these topics or themes of my life or coaching experiences pop up, I'm going to begin publishing kind of thoughts of the day or topics of the day or things that are on my heart that I feel compelled to share. And today's is about setting boundaries. This is a big one that has been coming up a lot in a lot of my coaching relationships and my clients that I'm working with. It also comes up every day in all of our lives, really. And I thought I'd share with you some thoughts and inspire some really constructive conversations around this topic, because I feel like there's a lot of confusion and maybe some negativity around what boundary setting is, and I want to kind of speak to that. I've been somebody who historically has been very guarded. The people who know me well and know me intimately and personally, they know my heart, they know where my thoughts are. I've often felt uninspired to share too much of my life or my personal thoughts or feelings with a lot of people. I was one of the very last people, I want to say, who ever started a social media account. I mean, the day that I did, people were contacting my husband like, Chelsea somehow got hacked and they created a false account on her behalf. That's how much the world around me understood that I was not an open book. And it's been a huge journey of growth and realization for me as I have stepped out more publicly to share. But what I've also come to realize is that there comes a point where we become maybe too open and a little bit like oversharing. You know, we overshare, we open up to the wrong people, we allow too many people into our life, in which case feels like a boundary that's been crossed. Oftentimes the boundary that gets crossed feels like frustration, misunderstandings, judgment, false accusations. A lot of different things can crop up when we feel like our boundaries have been crossed. And quite frankly, sometimes we didn't even know a boundary needed to exist until we realize it's been crossed. And we really need to honor those feelings. I feel like a lot of times we wind up oversharing or opening up our lives to gain acceptance, to maybe people please, to feel validated, or to seek it externally in other people. So we figure if we're an open book and we share our lives and we're transparent to everybody without discernment, it will gain some form of validation or respect or love or acceptance. And quite frankly, those are all the wrong reasons to open up. We need to start with self-love and self-respect and self-validation before we open ourselves up to anybody else with that degree of vulnerability. Otherwise, we could be leaving ourselves vulnerable to pain and trauma and emotional abuse, quite frankly. And that's not a place that we want to be in. Although we realize, at least I've realized, and some of my clients have realized, and a lot of us probably have, that boundaries was not something that was necessarily taught to us. Maybe they felt like it was an insult to not be open and share. Maybe people thought it was an insult and against certain cultures or beliefs that you're not to withhold information from your parents or loved ones or close people. But quite frankly, it's just a way to allow that boundary to never exist, or, you know, it's allowed to be crossed all the time if we don't stand up for what we believe in and protect our hearts and protect our emotions and exercise discernment over who really sees us, who really knows our heart, who really understands us at our core. Those are the people that make us feel good about being vulnerable. They don't make us feel weak. They don't make us feel judged. They don't make us feel pain when we open up and share ourselves. They don't use it against us. They don't weaponize our pain. They don't call out our weaknesses and ostracize us for them. They come alongside of us and they fill us up. They make us feel good and they love us unconditionally despite having seen our truest vulnerability. And so this has been on my heart for a while, because as I found myself opening up more and more and sharing more and more of my life and having these experiences, which I do feel I'm very transparent on. I stand in my integrity. I always have and always will. But I realize not everyone is allowed the privilege of my integrity, because maybe they're not walking a life of integrity. Maybe they act differently than they should. Maybe they are not being true to themselves and the people that they say that they love. And so for that, I feel like sometimes we have to exercise discernment on where those boundaries lie. Because if we don't assert them for ourselves, we're basically disrespecting ourselves. And so I found a couple excerpts here that I thought were really good from this book that I picked up in the store the other day. It says, Be Happy, 35 Powerful Methods for Personal Growth and Well-Being by Dr. Rebecca Ray. And she talks about practicing setting boundaries. And there's a couple things here that 5 points of how to practice this that I wanted to bring up to you. This is something I'm exercising every day of my life, and I also coach my clients to do the same as a way to protect our boundaries and to exercise radical acts of self-love. So step 1 is to learn about yourself. Get to know where your boundaries are. Sometimes we don't even know where they are. We have to understand what boundaries we have, when have they been crossed. Some things that might have felt accessible to people when we were younger are no longer available to them, and we need to create a boundary that may not have existed before. Or maybe relationships that have healed and become strong and have evolved, that boundary can lessen and we can share more and be more vulnerable. So it really takes awareness and mindfulness to understand which relationships are evolving in the right direction to be vulnerable and open versus ones that maybe need more of the boundary set. Draw the line, kind of just mentioned that. Drawing the line means that you respect that your boundary is there. Once you've set your boundaries, be prepared to communicate them to others and lovingly communicate them if need be. If you feel the need to set a boundary, you're doing it out of love for yourself, and that should be respected by everyone that you set it with. Because if you don't respect your boundaries, it says, who will, obviously. Assertively defend your line. Once the line is there, you need to enforce it. Because if you don't, then who will? This might mean upsetting some people or letting go of some people in your circle. It might mean that you learn the new language beginning with the word no. As I wrote here on my noteboard, no is a complete sentence. Practice using it. The next tip on setting boundaries is letting go of people pleasing. I think that's that need to overshare or please others and their emotions by taking down our boundaries and being more vulnerable. As she says, let's be real here. Some people will misinterpret your request to respect a boundary as rudeness or selfishness. I think we've all kind of heard that kind of underlying when we talk about boundaries. These people are usually either unable to set their own boundaries, which typically is the case. Anyone who judges anyone for setting a boundary probably has no idea what boundaries look like. Or they're used to walking all over everyone for their own gain, and they're disappointed that you won't let them do that anymore. And that's the more malicious side of things, but quite frankly, there are people who understand that you're somebody whose boundaries can be crossed. You're the go-to person for that emotional dumping, that idea that they can come to you and you can placate their desires at any time they wish. And quite frankly, whether it's subconscious or conscious, they're breaking that boundary. And now all of a sudden that you're inserting that, they feel very upset by that because they're not understanding why you're not available to serve their emotional needs anymore. Very important to bring awareness to that and to exercise discernment on that one. Speak the language of self-respect. Practice saying no over and over again. Practice saying no without justification. That's a big one. Practice saying no as a full sentence. Practice saying no simply because it's the right thing for you at that time. So really awesome tips. Yeah, you don't owe anybody an explanation that you don't feel compelled to have to give. And so no is no. No is no. When you begin doing that in ways that feel accessible for you, you're going to own your power, and you're going to be able to stand in your truth. And you're going to be able to open up to the people who understand you, and it feels safe to do so, and you feel protected and respected and loved. And for the people who don't make you feel like that, honor that feeling. Honor that feeling above all else, because if you're not feeling good about a certain relationship or a certain interaction, it is not worth that drain on your energy. And ultimately, we have to teach people how to treat us. Otherwise, we're leaving ourselves very open and vulnerable to how they choose to treat us. And so I just thought I'd share that today. It was on my heart for a while. That theme has been popping up a lot in my life, through my coaching clients and through my own personal life, as I reflect on how open I've become and how much discernment I'm committing to practicing for my radical acts of self-love. And I encourage you to do the same. So I'll be back with another topic, probably later this week or early next week. Leave any comments you like in the area below. I love to start a great discussion over these kinds of things. How easy has it been for you to set those boundaries yourself? Have you understood when your boundaries are crossed, and what does that feel like to you? I would love to start some constructive conversation around these topics. So I wish you all the best, and have a good one.